This woman screamed, CN20 police. Car stolic all small! All over a bag of tomatoes at the grocery store. What she didn't know. The man she was demanding to be arrested was the chief of police himself. And the moment she realized she had just called the cops on their own boss, you won't forget the look on her face. A Marcus Washington, a seasoned police chief, with 20 years on the force, had just moved to Oakwood Estates after losing his wife, hoping to start fresh and quietly integrate in the community he served. No one knew who he was. To them, he was just a tall black man in jeans and a T-shirt, picking out organic vegetables and fresh groceries like any other neighbor. That afternoon, Marcus stood in line at Fresh Mart, exhausted but calm, waiting to pay for his tomatoes and meat for dinner. Everything changed when a thin teenage arm suddenly reached over and snatched the bag of tomatoes off the conveyor belt. "You don't need this fancy stuff," said a smug 16-year-old named Tyler, dripping with the kind of entitlement that comes from never being told no. "People like you should stick to the cheap aisles." Marcus didn't raise his voice. Years of police training allowed him to stay composed, simply saying, "Son, those are my tomatoes. Please give them back." But Tyler's smirk twisted into fake horror as he stumbled back, clutching the bag like a trophy. "Mom! He's attacking me! Help!" Across the store, the sharp click of high heels announced the arrival of Karen, a heavily made-up woman in designer clothes, barreling in like a blonde tornado. She saw Marcus, and her eyes bulged with manufactured rage. "GTDOA from Waso!" she screamed, pulling out her phone and pushing Tyler behind her. "I'm calling T policy RIHT no." Her voice was shrill enough to make the fluorescent lights flicker. "Yes, 911. This is an emergency. There's a dangerous man here at Fresh Mart on Oak Street. He's threatening my teenage son, CBAKUP. CN10. Udal T all these cars. AT Sut TM Ashirai." Other shoppers paused, some rolling their eyes, others pulling out phones to record, while Karen continued her meltdown for the camera, convinced she was the hero in her own story. Meanwhile, Marcus calmly took out his phone and started recording, capturing her hysterics with a neutral expression. "Mom," he said evenly, "your son took my groceries and used discriminatory language. I simply asked for them back." Karen spun toward him, face red, eyes wild. "Shut up! People like you always play the victim! I run this neighborhood. I'm on the HOA board. You'll regret ever stepping foot here." A young security guard near the entrance froze, unsure whether to intervene. Marcus gave him a slight nod, then turned back to Karen with quiet curiosity. "What neighborhood would that be, ma'am?" "Oakwood Estates," she shouted proudly, as if the name itself was a weapon. "The nice area. The exclusive area. Not somewhere people like you belong." Marcus allowed a small smile, which clearly rattled her as she took a step back, dragging Tyler with her. "Actually, I moved into Oakwood Estates 2 weeks ago," he replied calmly. "What a lovely coincidence." Karen's face drained of color so fast it was like watching a balloon deflate. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "This isn't over," she hissed. "The police will be here any minute. And you'll be sorry." As she backed away, Tyler threw the tomatoes back onto the belt, one rolling to the floor and splitting open with a soft splat. Marcus picked it up, paid for his groceries, and left, fully aware that this was far from over. Because what Karen didn't know was that the 20 police cars she had demanded, the officers she expected to arrive and remove him, they all reported directly to him. Karen had just declared war on the wrong neighbor. And she didn't even know it yet. Karen drove back into Oakwood Estates that day, still fuming, ranting to a friend on the phone about that black man with an attitude, who had ruined her peaceful grocery run. She had no idea that in just a few minutes, the comfortable little world she was so proud of was about to crack, piece by piece. As she turned onto her tree-lined street, Karen spotted a figure standing in front of the house directly across from hers. He was unloading grocery bags, carefully setting them on the porch, letting out a satisfied sigh after a long afternoon. It was Marcus. Karen froze, hands trembling, and the grocery bag slipped from her grasp, cans rolling across the sidewalk. Her mouth fell open like she'd seen a ghost. Marcus turned, smiled, and waved. "Beautiful afternoon, isn't it, neighbor?" His calm, deep voice sliced through the heavy silence of the street, stripping away any remaining sense of power Karen had been clinging to. She bent down, fumbling to gather her fallen cans as Marcus stepped inside, the door closing behind him with quiet finality. That night, Karen decided to retaliate in the only way she knew how, by blasting loud music at 2 a.m., bass shaking the windows of the quiet neighborhood. She stood in her living room, phone in hand, Lev streaming into her secret HOA Facebook group with a smug, satisfied grin. "This is how you deal with outsiders trying to ruin our community. He'll learn who runs this place." Meanwhile, Marcus sat in his office, sipping steaming tea, his phone screen glowing softly as he texted his deputy. Phase 1 initiated. They took the bait. But at 3 a.m., the music finally stopped, replaced by the thud of eggs splattering against Marcus' front door. Tyler, the teenage boy from the grocery store, was outside with a carton of eggs, throwing them with exaggerated glee. He had no idea the entire event was being recorded in crystal, clear HD from hidden cameras embedded in porch lights, the mailbox, and the garden gnome by the walkway. At 4 a.m., Karen's 3 dogs mysteriously escaped and sprinted into Marcus' yard, tearing up freshly planted flower beds and leaving messes on his doorstep. Karen stood on her porch, calling the dogs back with a dramatic sigh. "Oh no, come back. Babies, come back!" But the grin on her face said it all, and the hidden microphones captured her chuckle as she whispered, "Good boys." The next morning, Marcus stepped outside in a plain t-shirt, calmly watering the surviving flowers and wiping the egg residue off his door, unbothered by the chaos from the night before. Karen, unable to handle his calm demeanor, stormed across the street, stopping just at the edge of his yard. "You don't belong here," she yelled, her voice cracking. "This is a good neighborhood, a family neighborhood, and we have standards." Marcus continued watering the flowers, not even looking at her. "It certainly is a beautiful neighborhood. I can see why you'd want to protect it from people who throw eggs and let their dogs destroy other people's yards." Karen's face flushed red, but she clenched her fists and hissed, "I will make you leave. I swear it." Marcus finally turned to face her, smiling gently. "You've already started. Feel free to continue. I'm recording everything." Karen's eyes widened in horror as they locked onto the blinking light of the camera above Marcus' door. But instead of stopping, she turned sharply, storming back toward her house, phone in hand, angrily tapping out messages to her AA allies. Marcus turned back to his flowers, whispering to himself, "All right, Karen. Let the games begin." That night, Karen stood by her window, the warm porch light casting shadows across her determined face. Her phone was in hand, fingers flying as she texted the inner circle of her secret HOA chat. "Tonight, he'll learn who runs this neighborhood. Tyler, are you ready?" Across the street, Tyler, the teenage brat who had snatched Marcus's tomatoes at Fresh Mart, pulled a black hoodie over his head, clutching a can of spray paint, his heart racing but echoing only his mother's words in his mind. "You're protecting our family, our neighborhood. If you don't act, people like him will take everything." In the dark, Tyler crept across the street, careful to avoid the obvious fake security camera mounted above Marcus's garage. What he didn't know was that Marcus had hidden 4 real cameras throughout the property, in the mailbox, in the porch light disguised in a garden rock, and tucked behind a motion sensor. "Do it, baby. Spray it big." Karen's voice hissed from across the street as she pretended to take a night stroll, flashlight in hand, while she was secretly live-streaming to her private HOA Facebook group. "Tonight, we show him who's really in charge." Tyler took a deep breath and shook the can, the rattle loud in the silent night before he pressed the nozzle, spraying hateful, racist words across Marcus's garage. His hands shook as he laughed nervously, the hiss of the spray paint mixing with the thud of his heart. When the can was nearly empty, Tyler pulled out his phone, recording himself grinning in front of the graffiti. "We showed him, Mom. We showed him good." Just as he finished, the motion light flicked on, illuminating Tamara's face in perfect clarity. The hidden cameras captured every detail, the hateful words, the gleam of excitement in his eyes, the can in his hand, the smirk on his face. The next morning, the sun rose over Oakwood Estates, and Marcus stepped outside calmly with a steaming mug of coffee. He looked at the hateful words painted across his garage, took a slow sip, and then pulled out his phone. With a few taps, the entire video played back in crystal, clear quality. Tyler's face, the can, Karen's voice in the background telling him what to do. Every moment, every word, every act of hate, documented. Linda, the kind neighbor, approached with a worried look. "Marcus, what are you going to do about this?" Marcus took another sip of coffee, the morning breeze brushing against his face, eyes calm but focused. "Nothing yet. Let them think they're winning. Let them dig their own grave." That evening, Karen posted smug updates in her OA group. "You scared now? You should have seen his face this morning. We need to stay united." Across town, Tyler lay in bed, replaying his video over and over, laughing, thinking it would make him a hero to his mother and her friends. He had no idea it would soon become Exhibit A. And Marcus, back in his home office, named the new file, Karen HOA Casey, and saved it across 5 secure cloud backups and 3 encrypted drives. He leaned back in his chair, watching the sunset, knowing the war had started, but Karen had no idea she was already losing. All she had done was trigger the quiet storm she could never control. It was Saturday night, and Karen stood in front of her mirror, smoothing down her blazer with practiced precision. Her eyes, cold and calculating, glared at Tyler, who fidgeted with the stack of printed photos in his trembling hands. Tonight, You'll see how your mother protects this community. She hissed. Karen had sent out invitations to every homeowner in Oakwood Estates under the bold header. EMRGNCYETNG protecting our neighborhood from dangerous elements. She had printed grainy, zoomed-in photos of Marcus watering his plants, taken secretly from her window, each captioned with fear-mongering lines like, potential trespasser, and suspicious activity. She also prepared a heavily edited video from her security camera, cutting out Tyler's actions at Fresh Mart, showing only Marcus standing near him, making it appear as though Marcus was stalking and harassing a minor. The community hall was packed. Marcus sat quietly in the last row, wearing a simple blue shirt, a small USB drive in his hand, observing as people whispered, some shooting him cautious glances. Linda leaned over, whispering, "They're all here because of her lies, Marcus." Karen strutted to the front like she owned the room, eyes scanning for allies, her voice sharp and righteous. "Thank you for coming. Tonight, we will discuss the threat to our peaceful community." She raised her stack of photos and clicked play on her slideshow, showing the heavily cropped images of Marcus and the video clips stripped of context, making him appear like a lurking predator. "This man attacked my son at Fresh Mart, roams the neighborhood at odd hours, and endangers our children," she said dramatically. Some nodded, others looked uneasy. But Karen's practiced fear-mongering kept them frozen in place. Just as Karen was raising her hand to call for a vote to ban Marcus from the community, Marcus stood up calmly. He walked down the aisle, every eye in the room following him, and said, "Thank you, Karen, for sharing your concerns. Now let me share the truth." He inserted the USB into the projector, and the screen came alive. First, the uncut Fresh Mart footage played Tyler snatching Marcus's bag of tomatoes, yelling slurs, and acting as if Marcus attacked him. Karen screaming on the phone demanding 20 police cars, her voice dripping with entitlement. Next, the footage shifted to Tyler vandalizing Marcus's garage with hateful graffiti, while Karen stood at a distance, filming and encouraging him. Karen's shrill voice echoed in the room.
"Spray it bigger! Let him know who runs this place!"
The room fell into stunned silence. Linda covered her mouth in shock. People who had nodded along with Karen now looked around, shame and disbelief on their faces. An older man in the middle row whispered, "Dear God, we've been lied to." Karen's face drained of color, her hand clutching the edge of the table as she stammered,
"This is fake."
Hey, he's framing me." Marcus, standing calmly under the fluorescent lights, locked eyes with her. "No, Karen. This is your voice, your words, your actions. You controlled this community with fear for too long. It ends tonight." Karen staggered back, eyes darting around, realizing the people she once controlled were now pulling out their phones, live streaming every second. She had once weaponized live streams, now she was the subject of them. In the back, Tyler's eyes welled up with tears, his bravado crumbling as reality sank in. Karen collapsed into her chair, the microphone falling with a loud clack that echoed in the room now so quiet you could hear people's breaths. For the first time, the community saw who the real threat was, and it wasn't Marcus. The room was dead silent. Karen slumped in her chair, face pale, fingers clutching the table's edge as she faced the stares of suspicion and anger directed at her. The very people who once bowed to her rules, who once nodded to her, for the community. Fear tactics. Were now holding up their phones, live streaming the downfall of the woman who once saw herself as the queen of the neighborhood. Linda stood at the back, eyes red, but her voice was clear enough for everyone to hear. "Karen, you lied to us." An older man who had once defended Karen rose, voice trembling. "You made us think he was dangerous, while it was your son vandalizing his house." Karen tried to swallow, her voice cracking as she whispered, "I did it to protect you. I just wanted to keep everyone safe." Marcus stood firm, holding the mic, his eyes calm but piercing. "Protect us. By lying, destroying property, and spreading fear. That's not protection. That's control." Karen suddenly leapt up, snatching the mic from Marcus with a shriek.
"I'm not guilty. This is fake, a setup."
"Can't you see? He's fooling all of you." Her scream echoed through the hall, sounding empty and desperate. Marcus calmly pulled out his phone, projecting the video of Karen on her porch, her voice sharp as glass. "I'll pay you $2,000 in cash, just write an article calling him a criminal dangerous. Who cares about evidence? Look at him, that's enough." Gasps rippled through the audience. A young mother clutching her child stepped back, shaking her head. "Oh my God, this is terrifying." Karen threw the mic aside, turning to flee the meeting hall, only to meet the hard stare of Richard, the HOA president, holding a thick file with trembling hands. His voice was low but unyielding. "Karen, you've turned this community into a national disgrace." Karen scanned the room, looking for an ally, but everyone stepped away, avoiding her gaze. Tyler cowered in the corner, tears streaming down his face, staring at his mother in fear. You told me they'd never stand up to you. You said you were doing the right thing. Karen's voice turned cold as she snapped, "Shut up." And in that instant, the community saw her not as a protector, but as a frightened, exposed tyrant. Marcus stepped forward, standing beside Tyler, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder, voice low and calm. "You can choose a different path, son." Richard drew in a deep breath, raising his hand. "We're voting right now. Remove Karen from the HOA board." Hands shot up across the room, almost unanimous. Karen stood frozen, her eyes hollow as she watched each hand rise, each one a blade slicing away the power she clung to so tightly. And then Karen's phone rang. A female officer's voice rang out clearly as she stepped into the hall. "Cuffs ready. Karen, you are under arrest for filing false police reports, organized harassment, and incitement of hate crimes." Karen turned to Marcus, her face twisted in disbelief. "Who are you? Who do you think you are?" Marcus met her gaze, calm, unwavering. "I'm the man you called 20 police cars on. The one you demanded be arrested. You forgot, Karen. I'm the one who commands those 20 cars." Karen was led out, hair disheveled, eyes vacant. Tyler collapsed into Linda's arms, sobbing, while those who had once feared Karen stood silently before erupting into applause, shattering the tension in the room. That day Oakwood Estates was freed from the shadow of fear Karen had cast over it for so long. Karen was led out of the community hall in handcuffs, her steps unsteady, hair disheveled, eyes darting around as if hoping someone would rescue her. But no one looked at her with respect anymore. Only phones raised, recording the exact moment the HOA queen crumbled, live streaming to thousands within minutes. Linda stood quietly, exhaling a sigh of relief as she gripped her husband's hand. Richard, the HOA president, trembling, placed the folder of evidence back on the table and whispered, "We should have done this a long time ago." Tyler sat on the floor, his face red and streaked with tears, hands shaking. "Mom told me to do it. She said he was dangerous." Marcus crouched down to meet Tyler's eye level, his voice steady yet warm. "Tyler, you were wrong. But you still have a chance to fix this. Hatred is something learned, but you get to choose whether you want to learn love instead." The boy broke down, covering his face, sobs echoing through the hall that had fallen silent. Marcus placed a firm yet gentle hand on Tyler's shoulder. "You can start over, but you have to walk that road yourself." Outside, police escorted Karen into the squad car, red and blue lights flashing across her pale, drawn face. Just before the door closed, she twisted around, her voice cracking as she screamed, "You ruined my life. I'll never forget this." Marcus stood calm and answered firmly, "No, Karen. You ruined your own life." The car door shut, the siren wailed, and the vehicle carrying Karen drove away under the golden streetlights of Oakwood Estates, closing the chapter on the reign of a Karen who once thought she was untouchable. That night, Marcus sat in his small home office, the desk lamp illuminating a photo of Sarah, his late wife, who had always believed in justice and the goodness of people. "See Sarah. Justice wins in the end." On his laptop screen, the video of Karen being arrested had surpassed 1 million views, and the hashtag #FeeKarenCalls20CopsOnThePoliceChief was trending locally. But Marcus didn't smile smugly. He knew this wasn't about revenge, it was the first step toward healing the community. The following day, Marcus held a meeting at the Oakwood Estates Community Center, inviting all residents. Standing before them in casual clothes, his voice calm, he said, "We've seen the dark side of our community. But the important thing is that we stood up together and said no to injustice and hatred." Linda raised her hand, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Marcus. Because of you, we learned that staying silent only makes the bad people stronger." Marcus nodded with a warm smile. "No one can change everything alone. You all chose justice." Children ran around the park, neighbors shook hands, eyes no longer filled with suspicion. Later that afternoon Tyler quietly approached Marcus, holding the Second Chance program card Marcus had once given him. I called the number. They agreed to help me. I want to fix what I did." Marcus looked at him, seeing hope in the young boy's eyes. "Do it, Tyler. Not for me, but for your own future." That day Oakwood Estates turned a new page, where justice was no longer just a slogan but a living reality. And everyone understood no one is above the law, not even a Karen who once thought she was invincible. Within 48 hours, the video titled, "Karen Calls 20 Cops on the Police Chief," hit 10 million views across TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube Shorts. Local and national news ran headlines. "White woman in Oakwood Estates arrested for racist harassment of black police chief. Karen calls police on her own police chief." HOA lessons. Don't think you're above the law. But the hashtag Karen Calls 20 Cops on the Police Chief skyrocketed to #1 trending, sparking reaction videos, legal breakdowns, and TikToks explaining the irony of Karen's meltdown. Clips of Karen screaming and fainting as Ma revealed his badge were turned into memes, set to remixed music and animated reenactments. Tyler's dramatic fall during the HOA meeting became the Karen's Son Tumble Challenge on TikTok, with kids and adults recreating it for laughs. But in his small office, Marcus didn't laugh or gloat. He quietly scrolled through comments like, "This is justice. You're a real hero. Faith and justice restored." Marcus set down his phone and looked at Sarah's photo, whispering, "See love. I kept my promise, I brought justice to the people." The next day, Karen appeared in court beside her lawyer, looking paler once, perfect hair a mess, eyes darting nervously as reporters and residents filled the courthouse. The judge listed the charges: false reporting, inciting hate, harassment, and HOA abuse of power. Karen stammered, I was just trying to protect the neighborhood." But no one believed her anymore. Meanwhile, the Oakwood Estates community began to heal. Neighbors opened their doors, spoke kindly to one another, and shared smiles. Families once targeted by Karen returned to the parks and community spaces. Linda created a community connection group for neighbors to support each other, regardless of race or background. At a community BBQ, Marcus stood by the grill, watching children of every color playing together, their laughter echoing. Linda approached, handing him a soda. "You know, Marcus, you showed us that silence is siding with bullies." Marcus smiled gently. "Justice doesn't come on its own. We have to step up to claim it." That night, Marcus hosted a short live stream, his voice calm yet warm. "This isn't just a story about a Karen. It's a story about hope, about justice, about standing up when it matters most. If you're being bullied or treated unfairly, don't be afraid to stand up. You are not alone." Thousands of comments poured in, sharing personal stories of Karens in their lives, finding courage in Marcus's words. Social media became more than a place for laughs, it became a place for hope and awakening. We can't change the past, but we can shape the present to build a fairer future. Karen sat hunched on the defendant's bench, face pale, eyes vacant as the judge read the sentence. "Karen, you are sentenced to 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, mandatory racial sensitivity training, and a $50,000 fine payable to the community." Karen stammered, "But I was just trying to protect the neighborhood." The judge met her gaze firmly. "Protecting your neighborhood does not give you the right to oppress and slander others." Outside the courthouse, a small crowd gathered, recording Karen as she left in silence, her posture stripped of every ounce of arrogance she once had. News headlines read, "Karen sentenced after calling 20 cops on the police chief." Historic ruling in Oakwood Estates: no one is above the law. At the same time, Tyler, the once arrogant teen who had egged Marcus' door, showed up at his court, ordered community service, picking up trash in the park. Marcus walked by, pausing to see Tyler, who looked up with teary eyes. "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." Marcus nodded quietly, handing Tyler a slip of paper. "This is contact info for the Second Chance Youth Program. If you truly want to make amends, start here." Slowly, the community began to heal. Children of all races played together by the lake. Neighbors smiled and greeted each other in the mornings. Residents who once stayed silent when Karen dominated now found the courage to stand for fairness. Linda texted Marcus. "She sold the house, Marcus. A black doctor's family just moved in with 2 kids. Justice." Marcus simply replied, "Yes, justice." That evening, Marcus sat on a bench by the lake, a soft breeze rippling the sunset across the water. Children giggled, tossing stones to make ripples, while parents chatted on picnic blankets. Marcus pulled out his phone, replaying the clip of Karen collapsing when he revealed he was the police chief. He didn't laugh or gloat, only nodded, and put the phone away. He whispered softly, "Sarah, you see this? I kept my promise. I didn't let hate win." Linda approached, holding 2 cups of warm tea. "Marcus, thank you for making this place safer." Marcus smiled. "No one should be cast out because of their skin color. Justice isn't about punishment alone, it's about letting people learn, change, and rebuild." He glanced at the children running around. "This is the kind of community we all deserve to live in." The camera pans up slowly to the vivid sunset sky, closing the story. If you've made it this far, I know you're someone who believes in justice, hates injustice, and values the true spirit of community. Today's story isn't just about a woman named Karen who thought she could control the world, but it's also a reminder: the law does not discriminate, and justice will find those who have the courage to stand up. If you've ever been bullied, discriminated against, or treated unfairly just for being yourself, don't stay silent. Speak up. Protect yourself, because you deserve a peaceful life. Comment, justice, if you're ready to stand up when you see injustice. Hit like if you believe Karen deserved the consequences she got. Share this video to spread the message: no one is above the law. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more HOA karma stories, real emotions, and real lessons that prove. Sometimes, David really does beat Goliath. and justice will always find the light. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. And I'll see you in the next video.